All right, question of the day. What is your favorite sequel game? Now, I don't mean something that's an expansion or even a expand-alone. I mean an actual sequel, something that is in the same universe but a different game. You could be thinking of things like Marco Polo 1 and 2, which are basically the same game. But today we're taking a look at Expeditions, a Scythe game, Scythe sequel technically, set in that universe of 1920 plus. This is a fantastic game. So let's take a look at what Expeditions does, how it plays, and we'll come back up using that new rubric to grade the game and get a final aggregated score right now. All right, before we get going in the review, don't forget to get your Space Dice Tower shirt right now. These are the 2024 shirts, and we're available right now on the merch store with those. We've already got quite a few orders in already. Get your hoodie and your shirt right now.
1920 Expeditions, a sequel to Scythe. It's designed by Jamie Stegmaier, and the art and world building is by Jacob Rosowski. And Scythe and Expeditions or anything in this universe has the best art of any game. And yes, that is a very strong opinion. So the reign of Rasputin and Fenris is over, bringing a time of relative peace to Europa. The heroic deeds of those who protected Europa fade into legend. Instead, the eyes of the world are on Siberia, where a massive meteorite crashed near the Tunguska River, awakening ancient corruption. An expedition led by Dr. Tarkovsky ventures into the taiga to learn about meteorite and its impact on the land. When months pass with no reports other than rumors of the crew and wildlife being possessed by strange parasites, a rescue mission is sent after Tarkovsky, but they also fail to return. So this is where our Scythe characters come in. They are itching for adventure. The heroes from the war privately fund their own expedition to Siberia, which is what you see set up here, hoping to find artifacts, overcome challenge, and ultimately achieve glory. So they borrow mechs designed for exploration and head to base camp to embark upon their journeys. This is where the story begins. So I am, from the original game, played as Olga and Changa, the tiger. And then my mech down here is called Lumberjack, and his ability is whenever you vanquish, reduce the cost of the first corruption of each color by 1. Now this game isn't exactly set up as the beginning of the game because I just played it and I didn't really want to reset it for this whole teach. But you're going to take each section of cards, like this one's north, this is central, and this is south. South is the only thing that starts face up. Central is shuffled and dealt out face down. North is shuffled together with just the north tiles and shuffled and dealt out face down into this pattern. Then you take a card from the deck and place it in each open hex. So when your mech encounters a hex, you flip it over because it would have started this way. So my mech would have gone 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. And you immediately flip this tile over and you add corruption greater to or equal to the value that it shows. So that says 5+. So you reach into this handy little bag over here and you pull out tokens one at a time until you get to 5, because this first one was a 3. That's not good enough. So we had to pull a second one, and I pulled a second one and it's a 5. So that's 8 corruption, which means you would have to vanquish 8 on this hex to make it go away. And we'll talk about that in a second before this action becomes available underneath it. So at the beginning of the game, every player starts with a mech, characters, and that's it, the 4 glory tokens of your color, and your cube starts on the refresh action, which at the beginning of a round, you have all 3 actions available to you: move, play, and gather. But after your first turn in a round, you must move the token to cover either move, play, or gather, and you have the other 2 actions available to you. If you put your token on move here, then you would have play and gather available to you. If play was covered, you would have move and gather available to you. If you had gather covered, only move and play are the actions you do that turn. And play proceeds clockwise to the left. First player is chosen at random, which is unlike Scythe, because Scythe you go based on the number of the mech board, or the faction board. So what are the actions? So if you're here, and we're going to do the move action, so I would take my nice little mech, and I can move 1 to 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and then I get the ability, if gather is showing, I would take what's showing, which right there, the symbol is purple, a card. That would mean I gain a card from the top of the deck, which would then go to my active side. Or I would, nope, that's not an or. I would gain a purple card, and I would gain a card from the deck, and then I would get to rescue an active card if there was one already played in my active area. So there are multiple ways to get victory points in this game. You have 4 quests solved, you get a star. You get 4 meteorites melded, you get a star. You have 4 upgrades, you get a star. You're the person who does number 20 up here, tile 20, you vanquish it, you get a star. You have 7 corruption tiles, you would get a star. 8 cards that you control, that means not melded, not upgraded, and not quested up here, but 7 between your hand and your active side, then you would get a star. And this one is the only one like this. You would get a star if you have 7 workers or 5 map tokens. That's something I failed to mention a moment ago. When these cards are face down, there is a map token on the back. You would take that and gain it whenever you encounter that, like when my mech lands on it. So back to the board. So basic actions are move, play, and gather. Play is playing a card from your left side, which is your hand, to your right side. So let's say I have these cards. When you gain them from anywhere on the board or the deck, they go over here. Whenever you refresh your cards, you can have them back in your hand. There are multiple types of cards in this game. If you play a meteorite card, because you took the play action, you play the card to the right side of your board. First of all, you gain Guile, and then if you have a melded card, a melded meteorite already up under the edge of your board, if you already have a meteorite melded up under the edge of your board, you would gain a second Guile. Then, if you have a blue worker, you put it here to discard a card to activate its ability. If you already have 2 cards melded under the edge of your board on the bottom, you would gain the previous card's core value. So that means the one to the left. Previous always means the card that you had already played to the left. Another type of card in this game is an upgrade card. So you want to upgrade cards, they're mostly items. When a card says gain guile or power, you just move the token up. You will spin this to get these tokens removed from the board. So that would take 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I have the ability to spend 1 less. Whenever you vanquish, reduce the cost of the first corruption of each color by 1. So I only had to spend 4 blues. I have now vanquished that. And you can keep going if you have enough to vanquish the other token there. So 1, 2, 3. So now that whole tile has been vanquished. So I've got 2 corruption tokens towards the 7 needed to get a star. But also now this action is either you gain 2 power, or you can meld a card, which is what I talked about a moment ago, of tucking it up under the edge of the board. If I'm here and I'm taking the gather action, assuming this has been vanquished already, we're assuming this has already been vanquished, so these belong to a player at this point. I would gain a purple guy, a $1, and then here is the upgrade action, meaning I can tuck an upgrade card I control to the right side of my board. Every time you upgrade, there are benefits. Once you have 4 upgrade cards, you get to get a star. So to place a star on your mat, on the mat over there, you have to use a space that has the star on it, which means the space has to be vanquished, the boast action has to be available, and then on your turn you would do the boast action, which is also part of gather. So gather, which this one means you get to do one of the actions on the adjacent hexes, and you would also get to boast, which means place a star for something you have achieved. For example, if you had melded 4 meteorites, or you have 4 upgrades, or you have solved. So I have my mech on space 16. I want to play this card. So I want to tuck it. So I would spend 3 guile. I would gain a face-up meteorite card and a power on my slider. And I would tuck it up under the edge right there. It's kind of hard to do right now. And once you have 4 of those, then you also gain a star when you do a boast action. You can only place 1 star taking a boast action. The person to place the 4th star triggers the end of the game. That's a lot like Scythe. So in the end, you get points for money. Points for money is points, just like Scythe. So you count your money, then you count your money on your upgrades, then you count 2 coins for every corruption tile that you have taken. So each of these that you collect along the game is worth 2 coins at the end of the game. Then you also, depending on the number of quests that you have done, you get money. So if you have done no quests at all, then your stars are worth 5 points. If you have only done 1 quest, your stars are worth 6 points. If you have done 2 quests, your hearts are worth 8 points. And if you have done 3 or more quests, then your stars that you have placed in the victory column are worth 10 points each. So max 40 coins there.
All right, so that is Expeditions, a Scythe sequel. Now, let's take a look at this rubric. We talked concept, then we talked board layout, mechanics, art direction, art, gameplay, and rulebook, and all those things get aggregated together to give my final score for the game. Now, first of all, concept. It's a 9 straight out of the gate for me because I like that this is the Scythe universe, but there's something eerie going on, right? And you don't actually get the full picture of that from playing this game. You actually kind of have to intuit it from the locations and then the story cards, what do you call them? The heart cards, right? The quest cards. And then also some of the other things going on. And you see it and you go, oh, I think this is some Lovecrafty Scythe stuff going on. Especially that one that's got the big giant ice frozen looking Cthulhu thing. Never comes out overtly and says that, but that is definitely felt. So concept is a 9. Now board layout is an 8 for me. I really like how the tiles are easily set up. It's a much quicker setup than Scythe. And you put those cards in those blank spaces. I like having the cards in the blank spaces. When I first saw it, I didn't think I liked that. So board layout gets an 8 for me, but I like it because it forces cards to be adjacent to certain tiles. And because the game is variable in how it's laid out, you can have variation of which ones are adjacent to where. The mechanics are a 9.5 for me. I love how this game plays. To me, it is so stinking good when it comes to it's taking that taste of Scythe, right? You take it and you're like, this tastes like Scythe, but it's a completely different game. The idea of moving your cube to do these 2 actions, these 2 actions, these 2 actions, or you can refresh and do all 3, but you can never put your cube on the same space twice. I like that, and those player powers give you variability with that. Art direction is a 9. Did I do mechanics? Yeah, 9.5 for mechanics. Art direction is a 9 for me because all the symbols pretty much make sense. It shows you what to do on the symbols, and if you ever have a question, you can look at the reference cards or the rule book to find that out, and it's pretty straightforward. Tilted cards mean from the board, straight up cards, all that sort of thing is really easily explained, and it's quick to grasp, and people don't have to continue asking, what does that symbol mean again? Art direction's a 9 for me. Art's a 10. I've always said Jacob Rozalski's art is phenomenal in this universe. I love this art. I wish there was more of it. I know they did the the real-time strategy game with this art as well, but I would love to see more of this art. And I have the art book as well. So art's a 10. Gameplay, it's an 8 for me. Now, here's why it's an 8, even though I gave the mechanics a higher score. Because while, yes, it does feel like it's always your turn, there are some times where you have to make an inopportune move because someone is standing in the space that you need to fill your hearts or fill your material or whatever, right? You can't get to the action you need because you can only move 3 spaces. And you have just played and gathered, so you kind of have to go, well, crud, I don't really have anything to place, so I can move and place, or place then move, and hopefully strategically get there. Now, someone's eventually going to have to move out of that spot, but it can slow you down at times, and that's my only quibble with it, is that you can't stand in the same place as another mech, therefore sometimes you're very limited on what you can do on your turn. Rulebook is a 7. It's pretty straightforward. It's a little lengthy and it kind of breaks things apart a little differently than I would like sometimes, but I do like it, so it's a 7. Now let me get you the total aggregated score right now. It comes out to an 8.64, rounding down to an 8.5. That is a phenomenal game. 8.5. Scythe Expeditions, or Expeditions, a Scythe game. So I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.